Elder, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
First time in our office, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. You met Jessica. Did you meet Jocelyn, our resident?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So Jessica kind of gave me the Reader's Digest version of what's been going on with you. It sounds like it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, about 3.
What was your first symptom?
I noticed the darkness.
Darkness. So difficulty in the darkness or darkness in your vision?
Darkness in my vision.
One eye or both?
Just the one at first.
Which one first?
My right.
The right one?
The left one for a little bit, and then the doctor in West Virginia started me on the steroid, and then the left one cleared up.
Cleared up, okay. When you say darkness,
It's like a dark spot.
it's a dark spot in the vision.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Surratt. Did you meet Steve? He's another one of our fellows.
Yeah.
So it's a darkness in the vision, and if you were to kind of point to where it was in your vision, if that were the mirror up there, where roughly would it be?
I would be missing.
Does it go through the center?
Yeah, it kind of goes at like an angle.
Okay. Is it more below the center or above when you look?
Below.
Okay. And the doctors in West Virginia put you on some steroids by mouth, and that got your left eye better. Did it help the right eye dark spot?
Yeah, it got smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really notice it. It wasn't too much of an issue.
Okay.
But now I notice it more.
When did you move to Seattle?
I moved back home 2 years ago.
2 years ago. You've followed with the Vitreoretinal Associates, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Have they retreated you with steroids at any point?
No.
No. Just eye drops?
Yeah.
Okay. And Jessica tells me that the blind spot seems to be growing a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed it getting bigger.
Over what period of time?
About 6 months.
6 months. Any problems at night with your night vision?
No, not really.
Have the eyes been red or painful at all?
Once.
Once?
And that's when I was put on the steroid.
Okay. And any floaters in the vision at all?
Sometimes, but not a lot.
Not a lot. That's not a major issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Pull up.
Yeah. You want me to pull up the...
Why don't you pull up the others? Okay. And let's take the glasses off. Great, and come on forward here. And did the doctors in West Virginia put a name on your disease? Did they give you?
No, they were still kind of trying to figure out what was going on.
When you first showed up with the change in the vision, did you have headaches or were you feeling badly, like flu or anything like that?
It was a really bad headache
Mm-hmm.
that kind of started in my eye. Felt like it was right in my eye because there was so much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You notice the radial hypopigmented spots, like just outside the arcade? That are different than the other spots.
In which eye?
In the right eye, I noticed them superior. They're kind of like deeper and
Look over towards my ear here. Good. Hold right there. Mm-hmm.
like outside the superior too. They're different than the well circumscribed.
Mhm.
They're not scars.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't light up though in the angiogram light?
No.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I didn't think they were active, but
Yeah. They're a little different.
yeah.
All right, very good. No shortness of breath, no chronic cough? Very good. Turn the lights back up here. Well, I'm glad you came to see us. Who was the last doctor of VRA that you saw? Do you remember?
I don't remember. You probably know closer.
Okay. So this is the right place for you to be. It's pretty clear that the underlying problems in your eye are inflammation, and that's my specialty. There's no one at VRA who really does that as their primary specialty. Our first order of business is kind of to put a name on this, and based on the pictures, there's two things that look like they're going on with your eyes. One is that you have what we call a choroiditis. So let me pull up the pictures here. So a normal retina, this is your nerve, those are your blood vessels, all looks pink-orange all the way around, and it doesn't have these spots. Your eyes sort of look like someone took a little shotgun and just shot the periphery here with buckshot and caused lots of little holes in the retina, and that was all inflammation that I suspect was there a couple years ago. None of that looks very active right now. Looks pretty old. Then there's a deeper layer of little spots here that are kind of underneath the retina but kind of look like the same thing is going on. And that's true in both eyes. So if we go over here, same thing. It looks like someone kind of took a buckshot and shot around there. If you were 55 years old, I would have a lot of concern about a disease called birdshot chorioretinitis. I've never seen it in anyone in their 20s, so I think that's very unlikely, but that's kind of the pattern that this is reminiscent of. Now, the other thing that's going on is I think what's actually bothering your vision, and that only shows up here on this autofluorescence picture. And so this is a little image here of the fluorescence in your eye on one side, and then the other around the nerve here. And this is an interesting pattern. This one in particular is something that we see in a disease called Azor. Has anyone mentioned that one to you? Stands for acute zonal outer occult retinopathy. And you also have this kind of unusual pattern around the whole pigment epithelium where the fluorescence is a little different in the center part of your eye than around the rest of it, which looks like sort of a second issue. Now, there have been reports in the literature of people having both a multifocal choroiditis, which is what we call all this stuff, and an Azor type pattern. So they can occur together, and I think that's what you have. Do you go to the zoo much?
No.
So Dr. Weinstein, what do we call this? If this is a zebra, and this is an okapi, excellent. See, you've learned something this fellowship. So do you know what an okapi looks like, Hazel?
No.
So
Has zebra legs.
see, it kind of has the body of a horse and the legs of a zebra. And that's when something is so rare, it's not even just a zebra anymore, it's an okapi, because parts of it look like the real zebra. So you have a really rare eye disease is what I'm saying. You have like the okapi of eye diseases.
Oh, wow.
We do need to do a few blood tests, which Dr. Weinstein ordered, just to make sure there's no infections underneath this. I don't think there are at this point. You know, it's 3 years. If you'd had an infection, it probably would have shown itself in a different way by now. Sometimes there's a disease called sarcoidosis that can look like this in the eyes, and we typically do a chest x-ray. Was there a chest x-ray done previously? And I guess they didn't see any signs of it on that, so that seems unlikely as well. Most of these cases we end up calling idiopathic, which basically means we don't figure out what the underlying cause is. So the real question for you is, what do we do for you? And based on the imaging, things do not look very active right now. The choroiditis is treatable, and I think that's what they gave you the prednisone for, was when that was active. And that will inactivate the choroiditis quickly. The Azor is harder, because Azor doesn't usually respond very well to treatment. And so we need to get an idea of how active the disease is before we decide whether to take on the risks of treatment. The treatment is not benign. You've been on steroids, you know that those are pretty strong medicines, and especially with the diabetes history kind of floating there, can really impact your general health. And then the next level up from the steroids are pretty strong medicines, similar to what you'd get if you had a kidney transplant or a liver transplant. And so they're pretty strong immunosuppressives and not something we would want to start unless we have an endpoint for showing that they're working.
Okay.
Which is to say that what I'd like to do is bring you back in a few weeks. I'd like to repeat the autofluorescence test. We don't have to do the whole dye test again, but we do need to do that autofluorescence. I'd also like to do a formal visual field with you where we see where your blind spot is and map it out.
Okay.
And we're going to use that as the basis to follow you.
Okay.
If that stays stable, I wouldn't recommend doing anything additional right now. I think we just watch you because there's, again, not a good endpoint. Once we start treatment, we don't know when to stop it. If things are worsening, then we have an endpoint, meaning that I can show that it stabilizes things.
Mhm.
And we would consider treatment if we saw degradation on the testing, either on the autofluorescence or on the visual field testing.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my recommendation at this point. Do you feel like it's advancing rapidly enough that another couple weeks will make a big difference?
Might not be a big one, but might be
Okay.
somewhat of a.
If you feel things are getting significantly worse before we bring you back again, we'll probably bring you back in February at some point.
Okay.
Give a call and we'll see you sooner and we'll recheck the autofluorescence and see if anything seems to be advancing. But to my eyes, this does not look very active right now. And so I think you're in a kind of a healing phase. At least that's my best guess.
Okay.
Okay. Are there questions I can answer for you?
Not right now.
Okay, labs are all drawn already, pulled with the angiogram? Okay, so that'll be the game plan. Now to make the appointment for coming back and seeing us, I don't see any cards in here. We'll get you a card with the phone number for the clinic and you can give us a call tomorrow and just schedule back again in February. But if anything is changing before then, I want you to give us a call so we can see you sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Okay? Comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me just make a couple notes here while we're getting that for you.
It's just good to know that we're finally getting answers.
Yeah, no, you're in the right place. This is the kind of disease we take care of pretty much exclusively. So we will get you taken care of one way or the other. I just don't want to over-medicate you. I don't want to put you on a big heavy-duty medicine if we don't have an endpoint for, when we're going to stop it.
So how rare is this?
Somewhere between 1 in 100,000 and 1 in a million.
Oh wow.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So you are the only place on earth that you're going to meet another person with this is in the waiting room.
Lucky this is home. Came back home.
Here's the card for you.
All right. Thank you. I need to know the address.
Mhm.
Do you want more?
I
Maybe if you want.
think she gave me.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
she gave me quite a bit.
All right, I'm going to let Dr. Weinstein finish up her charting here. And as I said,